On March 19th, 2008, I submitted my very first game review onto GameTrailers.com. It was a top 5 list of the worst aspects of Rock Band.
Are you ready, Steve? Andy? Mick? All right, fellas, let's go!
Yeah, it's not hard to come a long way from that. But in any case, today marks my 2nd anniversary of tossing my hat in the much overpopulated ring of internet reviewing. I would like to say that internet reviewing would never be the same again, but I'd just be sitting on my hand and giving myself the old stranger. But that won't stop me from inflating my proverbial ego by laying down for all of you my top 10 list of the greatest games to ever grace my most beloved console, the PlayStation. It was the very first console that I could call my own. It wasn't a hand-me-down from my older brother, it was rightfully and lawfully mine.
That's right, Bennett. In fact, the PlayStation invited a whole new generation into video games, and for damn good reason. It had a CD-based operating system, as opposed to a cartridge one. This allowed for cutting-edge 3D graphics, it allowed for full stereo soundtracks, hell, it just allowed for larger memory. All this made video games able to tell stories like never
Wait, who the hell are you?
What do you mean, Bennett? I'm the Gav.
Is that supposed to mean anything?
The Gav. Gavin, remember? I've been the one guiding your career this whole time.
Not ringing any bells.
You come to me with everything. I pushed you into anime abridging on YouTube. The whole Bennett the Sage name thing was half my idea. And I'm editing your damn novel over here. I deserve my cash-in video.
Cash-in video?
Okay, look. With all this effort I've put into your whole internet stardom thing you've been talking about, I deserve a piece of that. Tit for tat. Tit for tat.
So basically, you're wanting to ride my coattails.
Bitch, be glad you even have coattails. I've done minute-by-minute peer reviews of every single one of your videos.
Fine. God damn it, you made your point. I suppose you can join me in the countdown. You do know how to read, right?
Editing your novel.
Right. Before we begin, though, I gotta lay down some rules for the list. Only one entry per franchise, and they've had to have been at least a timed exclusive for the PlayStation console. And that means no Tomb Raider. It premiered on the Saturn, not the PlayStation.
And even though its sequels were PlayStation exclusives, they didn't share that initial wow factor that Lara's first adventure had.
So join us as we count down the top 10 PlayStation games of all time.
Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver. Kain is a badass. In Blood Omen, he took down the very pillars of civilization. And keep in mind, this was almost a decade before Kratos got pissed at the gods. In Soul Reaver, you play as one of Kain's vampire lieutenants, Raziel, who was killed by Kain for having the gall to out-evolve him. But you are revived as a wraith by the Elder God, and charged with killing Kain to reset the balance of the world. While hardly an inventive prologue, Soul Reaver's plot still manages some pretty epic moments of badassery, mostly due to its incredible level design and soundtrack. The environments here are just so grim and gothic, without falling into that whole Tim Burton Hot Topic territory. Some stellar voice acting doesn't hurt much either. The gameplay is your standard hack and slash affair, but you get to move in between the two planes of this world's existence, the material and the spectral. Being a wraith, you traverse these planes in order to solve puzzles and get by some of the more dangerous traps. You also get a progressively more manly and, some would say blasphemous, array of magic and weaponry, like baptism by fire. Eating souls for health is yet to get old either. As a whole, Soul Reaver was just ahead of its time, paving the way for the epic storytelling and intense art direction that we now all expect from our action games.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. This might be the odd game out, considering the other genres of games on this list. It doesn't have an epic storyline or relatable and compelling characters, but it was, and still is, one of the most fun and addicting games ever made. And I'm not even into skateboarding in the slightest. Everything about the game was pure arcade fun. Flying over impossible gaps while flipping physics the bird, being able to build and design your own park and skater to the nth degree, and one of the best licensed soundtracks ever in a game. I say one of because, in all honesty, the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater did have a better soundtrack, but that's only because they had Primus on it. Primus can make any game better, you mark my words. Not to mention the multiplayer modes were the perfect chance to act like a total dick to your friends. Sure, Tony Hawk games today are almost laughed off when brought up in conversation, but I prefer to remember the Tony Hawk games back when they embellished skateboarding, not when they tried to make it more realistic. Legend of Dragoon. And a cheer of hurrahs are heard throughout the internet. Seriously, Legend of Dragoon may have the most die-hard fanbase of any one game out there. People are still begging Sony to make a sequel, even 10 years after the game was released. Playing the game today, it's not hard to see why the game's so beloved. It's classic JRPG through and through. A simple but involved fighting system that relied on precise button presses, a customizable fighting system that allowed players to experiment with special attacks, and a grand epic story with twists and turns that can make M. Night Shyamalan feel inadequate. It also doesn't hurt that you could turn into a Dragon Knight at will and unleash some pretty spectacular attacks. My favorite part, though? Blatant and indefensible sexism. Oh, Levitz. It's cute when you confuse patronization with chivalry.
Silent Hill. Before Silent Hill, video game scares were mostly of the cheap, leap from the shadows kind. But when Harry Mason first wound up on those foggy resort town streets, the ethereal shit hit the fan. The monsters populating these streets weren't your average dumb undead. Oh, hell no! There were these vibrating, burnt, flesh-covered, screeching things straight out of your nightmares. And as the game world shifted from ominous fog to bloody infernal rust, your pocket radio kept you on the literal edge, breaking off into static whenever a monster was near, building up in volume as you got closer to it, but still leaving your ass vulnerable to an attack that can come from any direction, including the always terrifying death from above. But what really made Silent Hill a tense freakfest is its sound design, a never before heard of mix of mechanical ambiance and techno guitar instrumentals. And even though this game sported multiple endings, none had the mercy to give you any answers. The thick layers of philosophical metaphor and psychological mystique left to fester in your mind and keep you unnerved even after you shut the game down. Because, let's face it, sometimes a zombie dog through a window just doesn't cut it. Tekken 3. Easily one of the best console fighters of all time. Tekken 3 took what the community loved about it and made it 10 times better. The third axis got a major overhaul, allowing for character sidesteps to be pulled off much easier and quicker. And jumping was visibly toned down from its former moon gravity setting, allowing for air juggle-centric combat to finally live up to its name. Plus, the damn thing just looked good! The updates to the basic arcade engine making for noticeable increases in combo and animation fluidity, not to mention a more smoothed out and cinematic presentation. We got 15 new characters this time around, including Eddie Gordo, who, like Law for the past 2 games, made it easy to distinguish which cheap-ass friend won't be coming over anymore. Equipped with a jukebox of his addictive battle themes and some stupid fun minigames, there's a lot more to be had on disc after you play through arcade mode with all the characters for their cinematics. It was simply the smoothest and most fun-to-play console fighter around, making it a couch multiplayer staple for years. All hail the king of the Iron Fist. Resident Evil 2. What could be more awesome than boldly shooting at, then running like a bitch from a bunch of zombies? That's right, more fucking zombies. Resident Evil 2's shiny new graphic engine put a lot more brain munchers on our ass, making surviving the infected Raccoon City a whole new level of challenging. Puzzles thankfully evolved beyond just the shoving object or find key for door kind, and 2 playable scenarios that actually influenced one another made replay a must. Resident Evil 2 also marks the first time in action horror that the unlockable weapons and outfits were actually worth the effort. If you lived outside of Japan, you also got the superior game over screen, your character of choice being mauled to death in front of your very eyes. The presence of DualShock support made its inclusion a genre necessity from then on, and the music sported some seriously atmospheric tunes to boot. Yeah, it was a bit short, but the experience was timed well. We doubt the campy storyline could have lasted much longer beyond the endgame anyway. It's gory, intense, and ridiculously fun, exactly how going up against the undead should be.
Chrono Cross. Anyone who knows me knows that I love this game, and knows that I will give this game a verbal BJ whenever given the chance. If you open up a dictionary and look up the word epic, you'll find a picture of Chrono Cross right under it. 42 playable characters, a plot about collapsing timelines and alternate dimensions of reality, and the best original music found on the PlayStation, if not the best of all time. I can write a 10,000-word essay on how much I love Chrono Cross, from its stellar graphics and design to its pitch-perfect combat, and it still wouldn't be enough to properly convey how much I love this game. And it's only number 4 on this list? God damn it, how can you get any better than this? Ah, that's how. Symphony of the Night is simply a masterpiece in gaming. Borrowing from the go anywhere you're able to map progression from Metroid, Symphony of the Night would be the mold that most every Castlevania game would follow after. It also boasted an impressively deep RPG system behind its action platforming, and an incredibly haunting score to boot. Not as memorable as Chrono Cross's though, but still very good. Where the game really shines though, is its incredible boss and monster design. Half the time you don't even know what in the hell you're supposed to be fighting, but god damn did they all look cool as hell. Sure, its voice acting is a bit cheesy. Okay, really cheesy, but it just adds to the game's charm, easily making it the best Castlevania game. And considering how much I hate the whole vampire mythos, having this game anywhere at all on this list is a testament to its greatness.
Final Fantasy IX. Yeah, you heard right. You can keep your weak-ass emo protagonists. We're gonna stick with Tantalus. Final Fantasy IX was the first game to properly bridge the fan gap of the Final Fantasy IV diehards and the Final Fantasy VII diehards, by giving both parties what they each looked for in a Final Fantasy game. While continuing the series' evolution into 3D with some gorgeous and varied environments, it harkened back to franchise roots with a brighter color palette and more rural level and world design. The battle system also returned to glory form, bringing back Yield active time battle system and 4-man party. Needless to say, the absence of drawing was a high point as well. The formerly useless Triple Triad minigame became the narratively relevant Tetramaster, and active time events brought new energy into the Final Fantasy side mission trope. While some may argue against the character design, none could argue against the masterful score and magnificent cutscenes. And even though Benin and I disagree on the main antagonist of the game, Kuja,
You're gun-flipping right we do. The bitch wears kabuki makeup.
but has some of the best Baroque themes in the series.
Halter top.
One of the most well-rounded villains.
Womanly hips.
Kuja doesn't have a proper gender.
Codpiece.
Okay, we always have this argument, and it always ends the same way. Regardless of how we feel about Kuja as a character, there's no doubt that Final Fantasy IX makes up for this tension by giving us the most badass character in the entire franchise.
Vivi. Metal Gear Solid. Was there any doubt in your mind that this would be at the top of the list? Any at all? Sure, it's predictable and cliched that it would be number 1 on the list, but it's cliched for a reason. There is no other game that did more for the PlayStation than MGS, and no other game that can even come close to what it did for an entire genre. I honestly tried to avoid putting MGS on the top of the list because of its predictability, but if I had, it would have been an utter lie. MGS is that good. Memorable boss fights, an incredible score, fresh game mechanics that can still be felt in games today, all tied together with an interwoven plot of government conspiracy and nuclear proliferation. This is the PlayStation game that all others strive to be, and is bar none the best and most important game on the best and most important console of all time.